So I've been thinking a lot about Karl Marx lately, and a little bit more about his story, where he came from, what motivated him to do what he did, why did he write what he wrote, and how did this, frankly, really angry, broke man with a wife and kids to feed go from his law degree and whatever he was doing to this man who has written, a manifesto that countries around the world have adopted and have overthrown their existing governments to attempt to put into place that which he wrote about and what motivated him to do it. And even more to the point, the second point, is why are so many people today seemingly enthralled or interested or excited about that which he spoke about 200 years ago? And why would they see his vision as a better vision for them, even though they can look back at history to see how many of those adaptations of his book turned out? Who was Karl Marx? At the end of the day, Karl Marx was broke. He was married, he had daughters, kind of like me, was making no money, and he was living in his friend Engels' house in England. Now, a little bit different than me. Now, who was Engels, right? Engels and Marx got together and wrote the Communist Manifesto, but Engels basically was running his dad's business. So during the day, Engels was rich, running daddy's business, and at the evening, he was a revolutionary, burn it all down. Marx, I don't know if he came from money. I know the story of his parents, and I know that they had 9 siblings, but how much money the family had, I'm not 100% sure. What I do know is as he got into his life, he didn't have any money. He had to rely on his friend, Fred, to take care of him and to put him in a place to live and to give him money because he didn't have any. Imagine what that does to somebody's mind. I can't get a job. I can't make money. Nobody wants to hire me. Nobody wants to talk to me. My wife needs food. My kids need food. And what starts to happen? Well, I'm not suggesting that an epiphany happened and he just suddenly wrote the manifesto. He'd been working on it for years. He was a writer. He had all sorts of things written. I think he had things that were partially written before he died that I'm not sure ever really got published. Certainly was a philosopher, certainly was a thinker. Yes, I know, and there's a lot more of that, and this video is not going to go that direction, okay? But there's a lot to the guy. However, if you read the manifesto, it's kind of an interesting read. I think it's 45 pages, and it's something that I actually talked to a high school class a couple, 3 years ago. Really frustrated, I think, a lot of the other teachers, but I was asked to come in and teach class, and one of the things that I switched gears on is I said, let's read the manifesto. Let's see what it says. And some of the teachers I genuinely think thought I was going to suddenly indoctrinate. I'm like, time out. It's a book. Read the book. See what's in the book. See what information, is there. And I taught the kids, I said, guys, think about who wrote it and why he was motivated to write it. And as you read the words, can you feel the anger and the frustration that he was pouring through in his pen and on paper? And if you read it, you can sense it. He's angry. The book is an angry read. It talks about the ways to control business, the wheels of manufacturing, all of it. He wanted to overthrow everything. The problem is, did he want to overthrow everything because he had nothing and he was relying on his friend? Did he want to change everything because he absolutely in his bones and DNA felt it was the right thing to do? Guys, I didn't live then. I don't know. You can only read what he wrote. But I think you can make an interesting argument that I think a lot of it was his personal life was frustrating for him. And he was angry about maybe his lack of upward mobility. I think that's a legit argument to be made there. Engels is a slightly different story. And this is where I wanted to shift gears in the video a little bit and talk about what would motivate people today to seemingly swing towards revolution, swing towards different forms of government. Again, I'm living in the United States. Again, I'm not getting into politics. You can see what you want to see out there, but there's a certain movement almost organically building up. And look at where a lot of that's coming from. There's a lot of students that are angry, at a lot of universities around the country. There's a lot of younger people, called maybe millennials, that are angry, maybe even some people my age, Gen Xers, that are all, if you want to put it together the right way, they're angry. They can't pay their college tuition. They come out of college, they can't get a job. They got to go live with mom and dad. They're millennials, and they're still paying off their college loans. Their friends got rich, but they didn't. They're struggling to figure out how to put their kids through college. 3, look at me. Look at any of my previous videos. I got fired at 58. Okay, I am, in many ways, you could put me in that category. Haven't been able to find, an opportunity, and here I am making YouTube videos, and the traditional way of me earning a living seems to have eluded me. And so, of course, what would Lou think? Let's all revolt. Nah, that ain't me, and it's not how I feel. Why? Because unlike Engels and unlike Marx, I started my own business and grew it. I know how hard it is to take on a business loan on your own, sign off on it. I know how hard it is to buy a product, to process the product, to sell and then invoice the product and hope to God you get paid, and hope to God it doesn't get rejected, and hope to God somebody doesn't steal your client, and wonder, can I keep it going? I know what it's like to lie in bed at 3 a.m. stressed over your business. I know what it's like to finally make money. I know what it feels like to lose money. I know what it feels like to have people stare down their nose at you and think you should give it away. And your brain is going, do you have any idea how hard I worked to get here? Do you have any idea how much sacrifice I had to make to get here? And I find that many times people that judge haven't actually gone through what I just described. Which is why, although I find myself here at 58, I'm not bitter. I hope that doesn't come off in my videos. Not like Karl Marx, and not like a lot of the people he seems to be inspiring. I understand how hard it is to acquire the American dream. I don't know if you would say that I've lived it or not. Maybe I lived it for a little while. I'm not living it now, but I am free, and I'm free to make, decisions on my own, and free to start a business or lose a business or whatever. But look at Engels. Look at the guy who wrote the Manifesto with Marx. He didn't start the business. He took it over from his dad. So what sacrifice was Fred making? Maybe his dad did. I don't know how the business started. I know nothing about that. Let's not have a battle on, in the comments about this topic. I'm only telling you what I see. Okay? He's got dad's money. He grew up with dad's money. He's running dad's business. And during the day, making money off all those people he's out working for him. And in the evening, he's off being a revolutionary. You see that story play out a whole lot if you watch the news. The younger generation, mommy and daddy are paying for them to go to college. And in the evening, they're having a revolution fight, And you wonder who paid for all the college. Because if they had to pay for college, maybe they'd be going to get a job. However, hang on. Now we got people trying to get a job and they can't. And they can't pay their college bills back. And now they're hearing the voice of revolution. And they're saying, you know what? There's got to be a better way. Why would I be thinking about Karl Marx? Because what this guy wrote makes sense to a lot of people. Hell, there are countries that fashioned their entire, model of government based on what he wrote. There are revolutions that started based on what he wrote. But at the heart of what he wrote, and the reason I believe it'll always fail, is because Karl forgot one main element: humans. And humans always want what the other human has. We don't want to work for it. We want it given to us. That's a human nature thing. And maybe Karl understood that. I don't know. Maybe he hoped things would get better. I don't know. Frederick certainly knew he didn't really have to work for it. It was simply given to him. Maybe he was ready to give it back. I don't know. How would he have felt 10 years later when he didn't have his dad's money anymore? I don't know. You have to ask him. But interestingly enough, again, I can see why people these days are angry enough to want to try this revolution thing, because maybe some of them think they got nothing to lose. Maybe like Karl. Maybe they're broke and they don't see the American dream playing out for them and they're angry about it. If you go back and look at the bigger revolutions that seemingly succeeded, that is the Bolshevik one in Russia, the Chinese Cultural, of course, in China in the late 60s, hell, you can compare the Iranian Revolution in the late 70s. They all seemingly started with an idea people wanted to overthrow and give it back to the people. And there was always this sort of army of people that did the fighting in every one of the examples. And there was always some people at the top kind of directing the puzzle pieces. And at the end of the day, when the revolution was all over, those people that truly wanted to impact and affect change for the good always seemed to get wiped out. And it's the ones left behind who always seemingly were sort of pushing the pieces around that wanted the change for their own personal gain, always seem to succeed, and it always seems to get worse. That's what I don't think Karl ever took into account. Humans are inherently not necessarily good to each other. I'm 58, I've seen it too long, especially when either A, they're given a lot of power, or B, they have nothing. So take that for the grain of salt that I share with you, and I truly hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it somewhat enlightening. If you want to, share a couple of comments, please do so. If you like my video, give it a thumbs up. Please, subscribe. Let me know you're out there. If you've made it this far, and I'll keep making videos. I do enjoy making the videos. I enjoy sharing topics that I think are interesting. I hope, and I hope wherever you are out there, you are safe and well. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.